Hi everyone, welcome to this financial reporting topic explainer video. In this particular video, we are going to cover in detail the preparation of single company accounts. I am your expert tutor Aleena Kareem. I will be facilitating you throughout the video about how you can best attempt a single company account, which very frequently comes up in the section C of our exam. There are different requirements for these questions. We look at them also, and we will also see the common adjustments that come up in such questions. We'll solve everything stepwise. We'll cover it through text also, and then I will show you some questions from the ACCA practice platform also. So let's start how you can prepare the single company accounts in your final exam. Here we are in the section C of the financial reporting exam. Section C consists of two long form questions which are of 20 marks each. In the section C of your exam, you can either have an accounts preparation question, and along with that, you're going to have an analysis question. When we talk about accounts preparation question, so one question is going to be related to accounts preparation, but that can be either on a single company or related to group accounts. So consolidated financial statements may be required to be made, or single company accounts are to be made. Similarly, for the analysis question, either you can have a single company accounts, maybe for 2 years or two competitors, and you have to analyze them, or you can have a group financial statement and you have to do its interpretation and analysis. It can be a mix of both also, where you have to compare a single company account with group accounts. In this particular video, we are going to focus on accounts preparation question with respect to single company. The first important thing over here is to understand what do typical requirements of single company account questions look like. I have included multiple examples. One of them is in front of you. This question, worth 20 marks, required the students to prepare the statement of profit or loss and statement of financial position. There are very few questions who ask to make both these statements from the scratch, but we have had such examples, so you should be prepared for them. These questions are very comprehensive, but the advantage in them is that because the marks allocated, 8 are allocated for profit or loss, 12 have been allocated for the statement of financial position. So neither statement can be massively detailed because the marks have been broken down into two chunks, and the examiner has to give you easy marks also. We will discuss the easy marks shortly also, but these are the figures which you have to pick up from the question as they are and place them in the answer format. The examiner has to allocate marks to them also, even if they are 0.5 mark per figure. So automatically the adjustments are going to be easier. This was one of the examples in the past exam paper question. Here you had to make two statements, which is statement of profit or loss and statement of financial position. Another example of the requirements is where there are three chunks to the 20 mark question. The part A is asking you to make a schedule of adjusted profit for the year ended 31st December 20x5. This is a very commonly tested question. I will show you an example of such a question also, where draft profit is available and you have to make adjustments in it to get the final profit. Then this is leading to statement of changes in equity and a statement of financial position. This was apparently a very comprehensive question in which three statements were required to be made. But again, the challenge the examiner faces in such questions is that some basic adjustments need to be there, and that makes those requirements easier for the candidates to attempt. In this case, a schedule of adjusted profit needed to be made, statement of changes in equity was there, and statement of financial position. At times, the examiner gives a pre-formatted workspace for making the schedule of adjusted profit. At times, the students have to make it themselves. Another example of requirements is prepare a schedule of adjustments required to the retained earnings of Ludon Company as at 30th September. Now, the question is saying as a result of the information in notes 1 to 4. Normally when we are dealing with final accounts questions, we either have a trial balance available or we have a draft profit calculation or a draft financial statement available. We have to pick up figures from it, and then in addition to those draft statements or the trial balance, we have adjustments available in the question in the form of notes or bullet points. Now, while making the final workings, we need to pick up figures from the trial balance or the draft statement, as well as pass the double entry for the adjustments which are there. This question is also a reflection of such working, where a schedule of adjustments was required in the retained earnings figure. Technically speaking, we are talking about adjustments in the profit figure that has been calculated for the company till date, and the adjustments required were available in the point number 1 to 4. In addition, there was a preparation of statement of financial position which was required. This note also, please see, it says that all calculations should be rounded to the nearest thousand. Where the examiner is giving you this facility, please use it to make your calculations easier. Now, in this case, adjustments to retained earnings were to be done in part A of the question, worth 8 marks, and the same kind of adjustments, they were going to impact the statement of financial position also. Another type of requirements is where the examiner is asking to make statement of profit or loss for MIMS for the year ended 31st December, 12 marks allocated. This was probably with a trial balance available. So from the trial balance, you had to make the financial statements from the scratch. Then using those figures, we had to make the statement of changes in equity for the year ended 31st December 20x5. And in addition, the examiner had asked you to prepare an extract of statement of cash flows. Now, the complete financial statement of cash flows is not tested in your exam. However, chunks of statement of cash flows can come up. You need to be prepared for the whole format because any chunk can come up. But as you can see over here also, it was just a 3-mark question, so not a very difficult question. 3 statements were required to be made over here: statement of profit or loss, statement of changes in equity, and statement of cash flows extracts. So please very carefully, when you start the final accounts question, just read the top description that has been given and immediately read the requirements of the question. The same question with the same data, with the same trial balance may ask you to make a statement of financial position. Same data can be given for statement of profit or loss. So you need to be very careful as to what statement is required, and then you start doing the question accordingly. Another type of example is which asked for A, prepare the statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income. Always, while reading the question, be very careful about the marks that have been allocated to it. So 12 marks were allocated. It means that there are going to be some major adjustments. Then it is asking for the preparation of statement of changes in equity. And lastly, it showed that the company reported a basic earnings per share, and the question asks you to restate the basic EPS to take into account a rights issue. Now, in the final accounts question, it is a very common trend that the last 2-3 marks are allocated for this kind of adjustments. Like we saw over here, the extract from statement of cash flows were to be made. Then you have over here, you have to make basic working for the basic EPS. You may be asked to write about, let's suppose, sustainability impact on the financial statements. So any small part can come up which can ask you for explaining a particular point or writing about a particular issue that is there. In this case, we had to make the statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income, statement of changes in equity, and perform the basic earnings per share calculation. Now let's see what is the information that you will be given in the question. You will be provided with a trial balance and some additional information. This is one of the most common formats of your single company account questions. In the trial balance, you have information which is available of different transactions during the year. So overall expenses, let's suppose overall revenue, your purchase costs, your equity side of the balance, share capital, share premium, all of that is going to be present in the trial balance. And then you will have additional information which is going to provide you adjustments. it is very important that you read the trial balance very carefully when you start to attempt the question, because based on that you can make your initial format of financial statements, and then based on the additional information further adjustments can be done. In case of a trial balance, usually there is a standard format available, which has debit side and a credit side. And in case of additional information, these are usually listed as numbered points. At times, in the trial balance, in front of a figure, a reference number is also mentioned, giving the students an indication that a particular point, let's suppose point number 3 in the adjustments, is related to this figure in the trial balance. Even if it is not available, you have to read through the adjustments carefully, the additional information, and link all the workings with the balances which are available in the trial balance. Now, coming to how should you approach the question while you are writing the answer. Starting off with, you have to read the question very carefully. Start off with the background information, read the trial balance very carefully. I would say read the requirements first, then come back to trial balance and then the additional adjustments. So the sequence should be that you read the introduction of the company, which are the top 1-2 lines. Then you just see what has been given in the question. So is there a trial balance or is there an adjusted statement available? And then there are some points. You don't need to read the points at this point in time. Read the requirements first and then go back, read the trial balance in detail and the adjustments in detail. Coming to how you should approach the answer. By now you have read the question, you are familiar with some of the items that are there in the question, you have gone through the adjustments, so you know broadly speaking what adjustments are related to what standards. So at this point in time, start off by making a pro forma of the financial statements that you will be required to make, and make an outline of the workings also that are required to be done. Once you have made this outline, then the next step is that start picking up balances from the trial balance and start putting them in your pro forma and workings. How do you do that? Simply see the debit side of the trial balance and the credit side of the trial balance. Start picking up the figures step by step, and as you use the figures, either highlight them, color them, or strike through them using the functionality which is available within your platform, so that you know that you have used this figure. Remember, the figures in the trial balance are going to be used in your financial statements at least once, whereas in case of the additional bullet points or adjustments, you need to pass double entries. So from the trial balance, it is like a single entry that you pick up the figure and you place it either in the main format of the financial statements or the workings. All the items in the trial balance are going to impact your answer directly through the format or indirectly through the working. So please be very careful in picking up all the information, which is why I'm saying that you highlight or strike through the figures that you have picked up, because ultimately, while you are moving further in your question, you should know exactly that you have not missed out on any of the important figures. And these are the easy marks of your exam. The step number 2 is the easy marks of your exam, because when you pick up a figure and you place it in the statement, most commonly there are 0.5 marks allocated to it. So just picking up the figure from the trial balance and placing it in the right place in the answer, that is going to get you marks, and these are the easy marks of the question. So you need to grab them first so that you have a mental satisfaction also that basic figures have been picked up. Now I just need to focus on adjustments. Then step number 3 is that you need to deal with the additional information. You have at times 4 to 5 points mentioned or 6 points mentioned in the additional information. These are not in a particular sequence, and one topic or one of the adjustments is not generally related to the other one. There are at times some relations in the adjustments, like at times there is a revaluation given in point number 1, and point number 6 would say that the deferred tax does not include the impact of revaluation in point number 1. So such linkages can be there, but in most of the cases, the individual adjustments are independent of each other. So as per your comfort level, start with the adjustment that you are most comfortable with. But remember, these adjustments have not been made in the financial statements. So you have to pass double entries for these, a debit side and a credit side, to make sure that the adjustment is fully covered. Once you have that double entry in mind, you can place the debit side as well as the credit side in the either the financial statement pro forma or the workings. So step by step, follow it as you go through one point, start highlighting it so that you are sure that you have covered the debit side as well as the credit side. And lastly, close off your workings. And once you have closed off the workings, then link the answers of those workings to your financial statements. The linking can be done by giving a reference of the working number or using the spreadsheet functionality of linking the cells. And by doing that, you need to close off all the workings and place the final figures in the financial statements. Remember, your exam marks are available for the steps. So you need to show your working and your steps very clearly. The final totals do not matter. There are no separate marks for the final totals of, let's suppose, total assets, total liabilities. There are no separate marks for it. The marks are available for each step. Now, let's start in detail about each and every step that we have discussed. So, for the step number 1, which is related to pro forma and the workings that are required, remember there are no presentation marks, but please make your answer as easy as possible for the marker to read. If you have clearly displayed your workings, how you have achieved a certain figure, you follow the formats, you are going to make things easier for the marker to identify and give you marks. Use the trial balance, which is available in the question, to drive the contents for your financial statements and the workings. That is your baseline. Something which is not written in the trial balance, there may be 2 to 3 items that are not there in the trial balance and they may come up in the final financial statement. For that purpose, we leave empty lines while making the format. But primarily, the figures that are going to be used are the ones that are there in your trial balance. So leave empty lines in between so that if you read a point later on that you did not have in mind, or you had skipped it while you were reading the question, then it does not cause you any problem. This is a computer-based exam. Later on, also, if you have to make an addition of a certain point, that can easily be done without any cancellations or anything. Then scan additional information to identify workings. Just glancing through the workings gives you a very good idea that what are you dealing with. Are you dealing with a lease, or you are dealing with a convertible loan note, depreciation working, tax, revaluation, impairment, anything can come up. So read the question so that the pro forma that you are making is very specific. Please don't waste any extra time in writing or typing up the overall standard, all the items that can come up in P&L and statement of financial position, because that's going to waste your time. Be very specific to the question, and that is going to get you maximum marks. And lastly, please make reference of your workings to the pro forma. Again, the point over here is that it should be easier for the marker to identify how you have calculated a particular figure. Once you give the reference, the marker can see the detailed working. Also, if there is anything wrong in any particular working, then ACCA has a very good flexible approach that there is own figure rule. So for example, you calculate the revalued value of property, plant and equipment, and by chance you made an error in it. Later on, the revaluation was done at the start of the year, so you had to charge depreciation on it. Now, once you have calculated the revalued value, now going forward, the marker is going to assume that the value that you have calculated is correct. So you're not penalized twice for any one working which is not correct. So do your workings properly, show each and every step so that the examiner is able to identify in case an error is there, that where did you go wrong. If you don't provide the details and just the final answers, then by chance, if they are not correct, you will be losing out on more marks. So use the approach of showing the steps, making reference of your workings, and this approach that I have told you, this is OFR, the own figure rule, where the examiner says that if you have calculated one figure wrong, and there is future calculation dependent on it, then you will get marks for the future working if the approach used in the remaining working is correct. Now, let's apply this to a question and see how we can make the pro forma of financial statements. I'm moving to the ACCA practice platform, which has past exam papers available. So we are going to take one such example and take a look at how we can make the pro forma. Here we are in the ACCA practice platform. You can see when we start reading the question, this is the background information which is available. That print company is a manufacturing company and has the following trial balance at the date 30th June 20x2. Now, if I highlight this working, it's going to make my life easier because the financial statements are made at the reporting date and everything revolves around this particular date. Then I see that there is a trial balance and additional adjustments available. I immediately come to the requirements part and I see that I have to prepare statement of profit or loss and statement of financial position. Statement of profit or loss is worth 8 marks. Statement of financial position is worth 12 marks, which means that roughly the asset side is going to be for 6 marks and the equity and liability side is also going to be for 6 marks. Now coming back to the question, I know what I have to prepare. We start seeing individually what the items are. So equity shares, other components of equity, we have retained earnings, we have land, plant, all of these informations are available. Cash at bank is available on the debit side, so it is a positive balance. Revenue is available on the credit side. So all of this information is available. Then also I quickly skim through that the point number 1 is related to a bank loan and interest expense related to it. Point 2 is related to inventories at 30th June, so closing inventory. Point 3 is related to a contract which is related to the purchase of electrical components. So we are going to go through this later on to see that what is the issue in it. When I roughly skim through it, I can see the word penalty, which may mean that I may need to create a provision. And then the next one is related to selling a piece of machinery and the criteria is met for the classified as held for sale. So I have a held for sale item, depreciation is available and income tax refund for the year has been made available. Now that I have this information, I start making my statement of profit or loss for the year ended 30th June 20x2. Here I start off with the recognition of revenue. This is something standard. Every question is going to have that. Then cost of sales, this gives the figure of gross profit. I could see distribution expenses in the trial balance, so selling expenses, there are administrative expenses, other operating expenses, and I'm leaving lines in between just in case there is an expense that I was unable to identify at the time I was making the format and later on I can put it in. Even if there is no such thing later on, there is no deduction of marks for leaving these places empty. Then I reach the operating profit. Just to be safe, in case there is an interest income, I can't see it at the moment, but just in case it comes up, I have written it. If it's not there, I'll write 0, but I'm not going to write anything extra other than this to save time. This will give us the figure of profit before financing and income taxes. From this, we subtract interest expense on borrowing. As I cannot see in the question any leases, so no need to write interest expense on borrowing and leases. And if there is no provision available, then I don't need to write the expense which is related to provisions. If any such case is there, any such provisions exist, then we are going to add an additional line which is related to interest expense on provisions for this level of financial reporting. I've left the space still in between just in case anything comes up later on. When we deduct the interest expense from profit before financing and income taxes, we reach the figure of profit before income taxes. From this, we deduct income tax expense and reach the figure of profit. So I've made the pro forma in advance. Then I come to the statement of financial position as at 30th June 20x2. I've assets, non-current assets. In this, I have property, plant, and equipment. If there had been an investment property separately or any other long-term investment, I could have written it here, but still I have left some space. In current assets, I have written inventories. I've seen trade and other receivables. There was a tax refund written very prominently in the question, so I have written taxation over here, and then there is cash at bank. In case of cash at bank also, you may write it in both debit and credit side, which is the current assets as well as current liabilities, just in case there is a bank overdraft. And the question, while I was skimming through it, highlighted that there are non-current assets held for sale, so we are going to write them separately. Some items are standardized, some I have picked up from the adjustments. Then in equity and liabilities, ordinary share capital is definitely going to be there. I could not see a share premium. There is other components of equity. Retained earnings are going to be there. In non-current liabilities, I saw in point number 1 that there was a bank loan. There might be some provisions. I've written it over here because I saw that there was some penalty mentioned. Now, in that case also, I'm going to identify it first and then place it. Trade and other payables, I've written provisions on in the current liabilities also because I don't know exactly where we stand. These are the basic pro formas of the financial statements. Now we come to the basic format of workings. Workings can be made as we go on, but other than that, some standardized workings are there. So in case of cost of sales, opening inventory, production costs, or the purchase cost less closing inventory are definitely going to be there. So I have written them down, and at this point in time, I need to link this with the statement. If I put the reference over here, that's going to help my marker in understanding where I have picked up this figure from. Also, once we finalize the figure, when we can link the cells also directly in the format. Then property was there. I made a basic working of the costs of the items brought forward and held for sale. I've made a heading for held for sale asset. I've left lines in between because I need to read the adjustments in detail to identify how much are they going to be. And then we have interest expense and inventory. So this is the basic format. Once we have made this, now we move to the second step in our working. Once we have made the format of the trial balance, we need to start inserting balances from the trial balance. In this, as I mentioned, strike through and highlight as you deal with them to make sure you have covered them. Be very careful about debit and credit balances. Like bank balance, you need to see whether it's written on the debit side of the trial balance or the credit side, whether it's positive bank balance or bank overdraft. Same is the case with under or over provision of taxes also. And focus on easy marks first. Now I'll take you back to the practice platform to show you how I'm going to pick up the figures from the trial balance and place them in the financial statement. Here the figures that you have straightforward, you can pick them up and place them. We can start off in the sequence in which the items are given in the trial balance. So starting off with equity, we have the equity balance of ordinary share capital 29600. So this can come up, and when I use this figure, I can either highlight it or strike through it to make sure that I have already covered it. Another example can be of other components of equity, opening balance of retained earnings, and this is something which is being placed in the format directly. We have cash at bank also, something which we can place directly from the trial balance, 4700. So there are balances that you can pick up and place them in the format directly. However, there are some balances that you need to pick up and place in the workings. Like if I talk about the property, plant and equipment figure over here, then we have the brought forward value of the land, which is 45,000, and plant and machinery at cost, which is 16,200. Now, once I use these figures, I can mark them to make sure that I have covered them. This is what I meant, that some figures are going to be placed in your final statements directly, and some are going to be placed in your workings. In this case, you can easily apply the formula also in case an adjustment is required. A good approach is that when you are writing these figures, place an equal to over here so that later on, if you need to add or subtract anything from it, you can directly place it in the spreadsheet cell. Ultimately, all of these figures in the trial balance, they should be picked up and placed in the statement directly or in your workings. And just by placing these figures in the format of financial statements, you can get 0.5 marks per figure. So these are the easy marks. Target them first and cover them first. You can solve the remaining question through your ACCA practice platform. Now we come to the third step, which is deal with the additional information. In this, multiple informations can come up, and these are some of the common examples, but anything can come up from anywhere in the syllabus. The most common adjustments that come up are with respect to property, plant and equipment, inventory write-down, calculation or recording of a provision or a change in provision, estimation, calculation and recording of deferred tax, calculation and recording of financial instruments, a convertible loan note or a financial asset, and correction of errors and elimination of suspense account. You can choose the easiest first and start tackling with it. I will quickly cover for you some of the main adjustments that are tested. Now, but whichever adjustment you are dealing with, remember that you have to pass the double entry for these adjustments. The trial balance figures were placed only in one place in the financial statements, but for all of these adjustments, you need to pass the double entry and place the debit side and the credit side in the appropriate place, whether it is in the format of financial statements or it is in the workings. Now, with respect to common adjustments that come up, the first very common one is depreciation, because every organization or the company has some kind of non-current asset, so the examiner is forced to give you depreciation. Now, over here we can see an example. Print company's policy is to depreciate machinery at 15% per annum, and they clearly tell you that the depreciation is to be charged to cost of sales. Now, small working, first of all, while you calculate, remember that you need to account for any additions in the year, disposals or transfers to held for sale, and try and consider calculating the depreciation for each item separately. In many of the questions, the buildings have separate depreciation rate and plant and machinery have separate depreciation rate. So please be very careful about it. While you are recording it, you need to pass the double entry with respect to depreciation, which is going to be charging an expense in statement of profit or loss. Whatever information is given, whether it's expense working, adjustment to profit or adjustment to retained earnings, you are going to make an entry accordingly on the debit side, and the credit side is going to decrease the value of property, plant and equipment. This can be done in the workings or directly in the format of statement of financial position. Statement of profit or loss is the debit side. This is the credit side of the entry. Then with respect to inventory, over here we can see that there was an error in the inventory, which meant that the closing balance was overstated. Now please read the question very carefully, that inventory is overstated, which means that we need to reverse the double entry for 0.7 million to bring the inventory value down to its actual correct value. Now in this, we have to pass a debit entry and a credit entry. The debit side is going to be for the expense in statement of profit or loss, and the credit is going to be made to the inventory in statement of financial position, the current asset. Had this been an understatement, this double entry would be reversed. So read the question very carefully and pass the double entry accordingly. Another common adjustment with respect to tax, you have provision available for the income tax at the current year end, and then there is under or over provision available in the trial balance. This normally confuses the students, so I'm going to use the approach of a T account to explain it to you. Remember, on whichever side in the trial balance you have the provision written, whether it's under or over, on whichever side it is written, place it as it is in your T account, in your tax liability T account. Over here, this balance was available on the credit side of the trial balance. So we write it on the credit side of the tax account. Then we write down the carried down balance of liability, which is written in the adjustments. This carried down balance is normally not available in the trial balance. It is given in the adjustments. The balancing figure is automatically going to show you the tax charge for the year, for which we need to pass the double entry. So we are going to debit 27.5 million as an expense in statement of profit or loss, expense for income taxes, and credit it to the tax liability, which is going to be shown in the statement of financial position. Then we have revaluation and any deferred tax related to it. So in this company also there was a revaluation. The fair value of land was there and fair value of buildings was there, and the question said that no adjustment has been made to reflect the revaluation or the related deferred tax. This is very important. Identify in the question whether the deferred tax related adjustment to revaluation has been made or not. So first adjustment we need to do of land. We are going to revaluate, calculate the amount, increase the working with respect to property, plant and equipment. So debit property, plant and equipment if there is a gain, and credit the other comprehensive income if we are dealing with a statement of profit or loss and OCI question, and equity in the statement of financial position. So the debit side and the credit side. Second thing was related to the relevant deferred tax. In this case, we are going to calculate the amount. The debit side is going to be shown in other comprehensive income because that's a requirement of IAS 16 also, that the deferred tax related to revaluation gain will be shown at the same point where the revaluation gain has been shown, and that's in other comprehensive income. And we need to credit the deferred tax liability by it. Another one is with respect to errors. This may or may not include a suspense account entry. Now, in this case, if we talk about that something has been recognized in the suspense account, it means that one side of the entry is missing in the financial statements. For this purpose, the approach to use is that what we did do, what we should do, and how to correct it. Now, in case of this particular question, there was an ordinary dividend declared, and this was paid on 30th September and was recognized in the suspense account. So what happened was that we had a debit to the suspense account and a credit to the cash. This is what we did. Now, what we should have done was debit retained earnings and credit cash. To correct this double entry, we merged the two entries. What should have been done, debit retained earnings, we do it. This was not done, and something extra which was done is that there was a debit to suspense account which needs to be finished, and it is going to be in the credit account. There is no financial statement which is completely made and there is still a suspense account in it. So these are the adjustments in the statement of financial position and statement of changes in equity, and the suspense account is working, or the entry is going to close off the suspense account. Now we come to the last part, which is related to right issue. So on 1st September, there was a right issue, and the question says that the right issue was correctly accounted for on 1st September 2025 and shares are included in the trial balance above. In such cases, if you have to make the statement of changes in equity, we need to work backwards to show the working, because the closing balances have already accounted for the working. Now, what we need to do is that we need to work back and show what the opening balance was, how many shares were issued during the year, and how the closing balance was achieved. The last step in our single company accounts is the closing of accounts. Now, in this case, we need to calculate all the workings, find out their closing balance, find out the revised figures with respect to adjusted profit. That is going to go in statement of changes in equity. Then it is going to go in the statement of financial position. Now, if there are lesser important workings, we simply add them up and show them in brackets so that we can save time rather than applying formula for it. This is the overall approach that we are going to use. A quick revision of it: set up the performa, insert the balances from the trial balance, deal with the additional information, close off the accounts, and while doing all of this, manage your time well in case you miss out any requirement and you need to cover it. Now I'm going to quickly take you back to practice platform for one last glance on question which deals with draft profit. Here we are in the ACCA practice platform. You can see that in this question also there is a draft trial balance available. There are adjustments available along with it, and we can see a pre-formatted table is available for adjusted profit for the year, and then a statement of financial position needs to be made. You have a draft statement available, and then the remaining pro forma of statement of financial position needs to be made yourself. With this, we come to the end of our video. You have lots of practice questions available in the Study Hub and ACCA practice platform. Please apply this technique and master making single company accounts so that when they come up in your exam, you can easily solve them. I hope you found the video useful. Thank you so much and best of luck for your exam.